There is something that I wanted to address, and I only plan on addressing it once. So if we continue to get asked about it, we will refer to this moment in time, or we will use this time to deflect and talk about our teammates. Quite frankly, I believe me and Azie's personal relationship is nobody's business but our own. And what we choose to share is completely up to us. But as media members, I understand you guys have a job to do, and you guys have to ask questions about the basketball aspect of it. So that's what I will be addressing today.
Watch that body language carefully. That's not just a prepared statement. That's a player who believes the media has absolutely no right to ask about her personal life, even when it directly intersects with her professional career. Paige Bueckers just told the entire sports media world that questions about her relationship with #1 draft pick Azzi Fudd are off limits. And the response has been absolutely brutal.
Me and Azzi have always been the most professional. We've always conducted ourselves as such. And we've never let anything that happens off the court carry onto the court. And that's what we continue to do. And I'm not entirely sure if this is new to media members, to social media, to new people who are watching the WNBA or women's basketball in general, but me and Azzi are not new to this. We've been doing this for a long time. We have countless reps at it. We have a lot of experience with it, so we will continue to use that experience to show up and be professionals, great teammates, great leaders, the hardest workers, and continue to show up and do our job and help the Dallas Wings win basketball games. To add on to that, Azzi Fudd was the #1 draft pick because she earned it, and it had nothing to do with me and everything to do with who she is as a human being, who she is as a basketball player, her resilience, her strength, and her career best here at UConn. So Azzi is her great individual person, her own great individual person, and she should be celebrated as such. And now that we got that out of the way, I would love to talk basketball.
Here's the problem with that logic. When you're teammates with your romantic partner, it stops being nobody's business the moment you both step onto that court together. This isn't about invading privacy. This is about legitimate conflicts of interest that affect team dynamics, gambling markets, and the competitive integrity of the league. And Paige just dismissed all of that with one statement. The Dallas Wings drafted Azzi Fudd first overall in 2025, and immediately, questions emerged. Not because people wanted to gossip, but because there were better players available on the board. When nepotism questions arise around a #1 pick, and that pick happens to be dating an established star on the same team, journalists have an obligation to ask about it.
Sports reporters, well, I don't know if there's any more delusional athlete on the planet of Earth than a WNBA player. It is absolutely wild in which what lens they decide to look at things through that is so different than everybody else. I mean, you got companies out there that don't allow this to go down. All right. And the fact that and I'm talking about Azzi Fudd and Paige Bueckers,
that right there captures the core issue perfectly. The WNBA has created an environment where player relationships are simultaneously celebrated publicly and treated as untouchable by the media. The league promotes Pride Nights, features couples in marketing campaigns, and makes these relationships part of their brand identity. But the moment a reporter asks a legitimate question about how it affects team operations, suddenly, it's crossing a line. This isn't theoretical. We've already seen this play out with other couples in the league. DeJounte Carrington and Nalissa Smith played against each other in the playoffs, then were spotted hanging out together between games. That raised eyebrows across the league because competitive information can be shared, intentionally or not, in those intimate settings.
I guarantee you there's not a single member of the WNBA media that's got enough cojones, or any cojones, to actually ask a follow-up question to that. Because those journalists and those reporters in that room should have crushed her on the spot. Crushed her on the spot. That's arrogance and entitlement at a whole nother level. That's hilarious. People know her and Azzi Fudd have been in a relationship since they was a...
And there's the arrogance laid bare. The media has no spine in this league, and Paige knows it. She stood at that podium, delivered that statement, and not a single reporter in that room had the courage to ask a follow-up question. Not one journalist pushed back on the obvious contradictions in her reasoning. Compare this to any other professional league. If LeBron James was in a relationship with a teammate, it would be the biggest story in sports. Every single day, reporters would be asking about locker room dynamics, team chemistry, potential conflicts, and LeBron would be expected to answer those questions because he's a professional athlete in a professional league. But the WNBA media operates differently. Too many reporters see their role as protecting players rather than holding them accountable. They view tough questions as attacks rather than journalism. And that's exactly why Paige felt comfortable delivering that statement without fear of pushback.
UConn. The WNBA has turned into an activist and LGBTQ league. Has been. Everybody's business is out on Main Street. Going about the business, don't worry about the media, what the media is saying and putting out. Well, the problem is the media ain't got no balls. The reaction, the outrage, when the Dallas Wings PR person stopped the line of questions, that was appropriate. It was the first time I can remember basically everybody coming together and being in agreement that the question was fair, except some members of the WNBA media, because it's not the media. This is what the WNBA media doesn't understand. It's not your job to protect these players. In fact, I mean,
let's talk about the gambling angle, because this is where it gets serious. Sports betting is now legal in most states, and people are wagering real money on WNBA games. Those bettors have a legitimate interest in knowing if there are off-court factors that could affect player performance. If Paige and Azzy have an argument before a game, does that impact their on-court chemistry? Does it affect their shot selection, their willingness to pass to each other, their defensive communication? These aren't invasive questions. These are practical considerations that exist specifically because they chose to be in a relationship while playing on the same team. And here's what makes this particularly problematic. In corporate America, many companies have policies against romantic relationships between employees, specifically because of conflicts of interest. When those relationships do occur, they're typically disclosed to HR and management to ensure proper oversight. But in the WNBA, we're supposed to pretend these dynamics don't exist.
That is showing a level of bias. You don't have any business covering this sport if you're actively going to try to protect these players. I mean, it's crazy as hell. Amazing. Paige and Azzy's relationship will never impact playing or any game stuff because Paige said so. Boy, please. Yeah, I mean, further proof lesbians have the brain capacity of 12-year-olds. Legit middle school level response here from a grown lesbian. Wow. 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 Man, I got to tell you, wasn't she available? She was drafted number 1 because, yeah, the fact that she was drafted number 1 overall when there were players on the board that one could construed as better players available, that in itself raises questions. And that's why a lot of people don't take.
The social media reaction has been merciless, and rightfully so. One comment captured it perfectly. Further proof lesbians have the brain capacity of 12-year-olds. Legit middle school level response here from a grown lesbian. That's harsh, but it speaks to the fundamental immaturity of Paige's response. Another user pointed out the obvious double standard. If 2 NBA guys were dating on the same team, it would be an enormous story. Part of the new media deal attention means addressing things. And that's exactly right. The WNBA just signed a new media deal worth real money. With that money comes increased scrutiny and higher professional standards. You can't have it both ways. You can't demand to be taken seriously as professional athletes, demand equal pay and equal coverage, and then turn around and say your professional relationships are off limits to professional journalists. That's not how professional sports work.
This league seriously. Many people believe she got drafted because Paige was on this team. I mean, honestly. And it's people like that. I don't get it. They're not doing anything wrong. They're on the same team. If they break up, it's a flamethrower in the locker room. Yeah, this won't be the last time Paige has to address this. Women don't get a pass here just for being women. Amen. If LeBron was banging Doncic, woo, it would be fair game for the media to bring that up relentlessly. Yeah, sure, Jan. I mean, it's crazy. I love the fact that people somehow believe this is nobody's business, but they play together. There's conflicts of interest all over this league. Your league literally celebrates it, but do not ask questions. Unfortunately, that's not how it works, Paige. There you go. If two NBA guys were dating on the same team, it would be an enormous story. Part of the new media deal, attention, means addressing things. Yeah, that's the other thing.
Now let's address the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. What happens when they break up? Because statistically, most relationships end. And when this one does, the Dallas Wings have a massive problem on their hands. You've got a fractured locker room overnight. You've got two-star players who can't be in the same room without tension. You've got teammates forced to choose sides or navigate an impossible social dynamic. And you've got a front office that has to decide whether to trade one of them, which means admitting the relationship was a problem all along. This is exactly why corporations have policies against workplace relationships. It's not about morality or judgment. It's about protecting the organization from predictable, avoidable dysfunction. But the Wings put themselves in this position by drafting Azzi first overall when she wasn't the best player available, and now they're stuck managing the fallout.
Y'all getting paid real money now. So now it's time to put your big boy britches on and understand you got to start talking about some things. Once they break up, it will ruin the team chemistry. They'll have to trade one of them. They'll have to trade somebody because somebody decided to quit sleeping with the other one. That's the dynamic you set up. I mean, Wings fans are literally going to have to be on edge all the time, wondering if their team is about to blow up. Who cares, Paige? Dallas shouldn't have even drafted your girl that high. Welcome to the spotlight you both chose for yourself. I mean, come on. This is why women's sports is an abject failure. This is a question that deserves given proper respect. You're a professional now, eyes on you, everything you do, people are watching. Exactly. Paige, this is not going away.
Here's what makes this situation even more absurd. Paige claims they've been handling this professionally for years, going back to their UConn days. She says they have countless reps at keeping their relationship separate from basketball. But that actually makes the media's questions more legitimate, not less. If this dynamic has existed for years, then it's been affecting team chemistry, playing time decisions, and competitive outcomes for years. UConn coaches had to manage this. Now Dallas coaches have to manage it. And fans, bettors, and media members have every right to ask how it's being managed. Paige also made a point of defending Ozzy's draft position, saying it had nothing to do with their relationship and everything to do with Ozzy's performance in Japan. But that's exactly the kind of statement that invites scrutiny. When you have to proactively defend a draft pick against nepotism accusations, that tells you the accusations have merit. The reality is this: Ozzy Fudd was not the consensus #1 pick. There were other players available who many analysts ranked higher. The fact that Dallas took her first overall, and she happens to be dating their star player, is a story. It's a legitimate story, and dismissing questions about it as invasive or inappropriate is insulting to everyone's intelligence.
Because you want it to. Who cares what you want? I mean, that's great. Yeah, it'll go away. Both of you walk away and retire. Then you ain't got to worry about it. Then it truly becomes nobody's business. But if you play ball, if you're part of the media, if you got a podcast, if you do any of that stuff in the limelight, it's fair game. It's fair game. As long as you're in the spotlight, don't know what to tell you. Sorry, but not sorry at all. The delusion is unbelievable. The delusion, arrogance, and entitlement is wild. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show.
Let's zoom out and look at what this reveals about the WNBA's broader cultural problems. This league has spent years complaining about lack of media coverage, lack of respect, lack of investment. But when media coverage arrives, when scrutiny increases, when professional standards are applied, suddenly it's an attack. You can't build a sustainable professional league on that foundation. You can't demand serious treatment while rejecting serious questions. You can't celebrate your authenticity and visibility while declaring entire topics off limits. That's not how professional sports work in any other context. The NBA doesn't operate this way. NFL players don't get to tell reporters which topics are acceptable. MLB stars don't deliver prepared statements shutting down lines of questioning. They answer tough questions because that's part of being a professional athlete in a major league. Here's what makes this significant for the future of the WNBA. The league just signed a media deal worth real money. With that deal comes expectations from broadcasters, sponsors, and fans. Those stakeholders expect professional conduct, transparent operations, and access to players. When Paige Bueckers stands at a podium and declares an entire topic off limits, she's not just speaking for herself. She's setting a precedent for how WNBA players interact with media. And if that precedent is we decide what you're allowed to ask about, then the league has a serious problem. Because here's the thing about professional sports media. It's a symbiotic relationship. Players need media coverage to build their brands, secure endorsements, and grow the league. Media needs player access to create compelling content that attracts audiences. When one side decides they can dictate terms unilaterally, the relationship breaks down. And make no mistake, the media will eventually push back. Right now, WNBA media is mostly friendly because the league is still building. But as the stakes increase, as the money grows, as the audience expands, the coverage will become more adversarial. That's not a threat. That's just the natural evolution of sports journalism. Look at how NFL media operates. Look at NBA coverage. Look at any major professional league. The journalists who cover those leagues ask tough questions, challenge official narratives, and hold players accountable. That's their job. And WNBA players are going to have to adjust to that reality. Paige's statement reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how professional sports media works. She seems to believe that because something is personal, it's automatically off limits. But that's not the standard. The standard is whether it affects professional performance and team operations. And a romantic relationship between teammates absolutely meets that standard. Think about the position this puts Dallas Wings fans in. They're supposed to invest emotionally and financially in this team, buy tickets, purchase merchandise, watch every game. But they're not allowed to ask about a dynamic that could blow up the team at any moment? That's not fair to the fans who support this league. And what about the Wings front office? They made a controversial draft decision that raised immediate questions about favoritism and conflicts of interest. Don't they have an obligation to address those concerns? Don't they owe their fan base some transparency about how they're managing this situation? Instead, we get Paige's prepared statement, shutting down the conversation, and the media just accepts it. No follow-up questions, no pushback, no accountability. Just move on to basketball questions like nothing happened. That's not journalism, that's public relations. And if the WNBA media is going to function as an extension of the league's PR department, then they need to be honest about that. Don't pretend you're asking tough questions when you're not willing to push back on obvious deflections. Here's the reality that Paige and the WNBA need to accept. Professional athletes don't get to decide what's newsworthy. Journalists make that determination based on what affects team performance, league operations, and fan interest. And a romantic relationship between the team's star player and the #1 draft pick checks all three boxes. This isn't going away. Every time Dallas struggles, people will wonder if there's tension between Paige and Azzy. Every time their on-court chemistry looks off, speculation will arise. Every time one of them has a bad game, questions will emerge about off-court distractions. That's the reality they created by choosing to be in a public relationship while playing on the same team. And when they eventually break up, because most relationships end, it's going to be a massive story. The media will cover it extensively, fans will discuss it endlessly, and the Wings will have to manage a public relations nightmare while trying to salvage their team chemistry. All of this could have been avoided with transparency and professionalism from the beginning. If Paige had simply acknowledged the legitimate questions, explained how they're managing the dynamic, and demonstrated that team success comes first, this would be a non-story. Instead, she chose defensiveness and deflection, which only makes people more suspicious. So where does this leave us? The WNBA is at a crossroads. The league is growing, the money is increasing, and the scrutiny is intensifying. Players can either adapt to professional standards of media interaction, or they can continue treating journalists like adversaries who need to be managed and controlled. Paige Bueckers made her choice with that statement. She chose deflection over transparency. She chose defensiveness over professionalism, and she chose to treat legitimate journalistic questions as invasive attacks on her privacy. The question now is whether the WNBA media will continue accepting that treatment. Will reporters keep allowing players to dictate which topics are acceptable, Will they keep prioritizing access over accountability, or will they start doing their jobs and asking the tough questions that need to be asked? Because if the WNBA wants to be taken seriously as a professional league, it needs to accept professional scrutiny, and that means players answering tough questions about conflicts of interest, team dynamics, and controversial decisions. No exceptions, no special treatment, no prepared statements shutting down legitimate lines of inquiry. So here's the question for you. Do you think Paige Bueckers has a right to declare her relationship off limits to media questions? Or is this a legitimate story that affects team operations and deserves coverage? Let me know in the comments, because this debate is far from over.